The black sedan idled at the palace gates at 3 in the morning. Inside, Camilla sat rigid in the back seat, her hands gripping a small leather bag. Rain streaked down the windows. She could see the guard tower lit up in the darkness ahead. Her driver Marcus glanced at her in the mirror. His eyes asked the question he couldn't speak aloud. "Are you sure about this?" She nodded once. The engine hummed. They moved forward. No one was supposed to know about this trip. No assistance. No security detail. No press. Just Camilla and Marcus heading toward Heathrow Airport under the cover of night. The plan was simple. Board a private plane. Fly to Geneva. Disappear for a few days. Maybe longer. But nothing in royal life is ever truly simple. The tension had been building for months. Every public appearance felt like walking through fire. The cameras. The whispers. The headlines that twisted every word she spoke. Camilla had tried to be strong. She had smiled through the ceremonies. She had held her head high at every state dinner. But inside, something was breaking. 3 weeks ago, she told Charles she needed space. He looked at her across the breakfast table with tired eyes and said nothing. That silence hurt more than any argument could. It told her everything. He wouldn't fight for her. He wouldn't defend her. She was alone in this gilded prison. If you're watching this story unfold and wondering what happens next, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss how this night changes everything. The sedan approached the main gate. Camilla could see 2 guards standing in the rain. Their red uniforms were dark with water. They held their positions like statues. Marcus slowed the car. He rolled down his window. Cold air rushed in. "Evening identification, please," one guard said. His voice was formal, clipped. Professional Marcus handed over the documents. Camilla held her breath. These papers were legitimate. She had every right to leave. She was not a prisoner, but her heart pounded like she was doing something forbidden. The guard studied the papers under his flashlight. Rain pattered on the roof of the car. Seconds felt like hours. Then he looked up. His eyes met Camilla's through the window. Something changed in his expression. Recognition. Then something else. Concern? Confusion? "One moment, please," he said. He stepped back toward the guard tower. Camilla felt ice in her stomach. "What's happening?" she whispered. Marcus gripped the steering wheel. "I don't know," the guard spoke into a radio. Another guard emerged from the tower. Then another. Now there were 4 of them, all standing in formation between the sedan and the exit gate. The rain fell harder. The windshield wipers moved back and forth. Back and forth. "Ma'am," Marcus said quietly. "I think we should turn around," Camilla said. Her voice was steel. "Keep going." But the gates didn't open. Instead, more lights came on. The guard tower blazed like a lighthouse. A voice crackled over a loudspeaker. "Please remain in your vehicle." Camilla's hands trembled. Who had called them? Who knew she was leaving? The plan had been so careful. So secret, only Marcus knew. Unless someone had been watching, listening, waiting, the guard stood firm, unmoving. A human wall between her and freedom, and then she saw him. Walking through the rain toward the car. Admiral Sir Geoffrey Harman, head of royal security. His face was grave. He carried an umbrella, but seemed unbothered by the storm. He moved with purpose. With authority, when he reached her window, he bent down. Tapped the glass. Camilla didn't move. Couldn't move. Geoffrey's eyes held something she couldn't read. Was it sympathy? Or was it duty? Marcus looked at her again. "Ma'am." The window stayed up. The rain kept falling. And Geoffrey kept waiting. Camilla pressed the button. The window slid down. Rain mist touched her face. Geoffrey stood there, water dripping from his umbrella, his expression unreadable in the harsh lights. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "I need you to step out of the vehicle." "On whose authority?" Her voice was steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "On the authority of the crown and your own safety." Those words hung in the air like a threat or a warning. Camilla couldn't tell which. She looked at Marcus. He was pale. his knuckles white on the wheel. He was just a driver. A good man who had agreed to help her. Now he was caught in something bigger than both of them. "Am I being detained?" Camilla asked. Jeffrey's jaw tightened. "You're being protected. There's a situation. Please, come with me." Everything in her wanted to refuse. To tell Marcus to drive forward, to crash through the gates if necessary. But she saw the guards. She saw their hands resting near their weapons. This wasn't a request. This was a command wrapped in politeness. She opened the door, stepped out into the rain. The cold hit her immediately. Jeffrey held the umbrella over her head. "This way," he said. They walked toward the guard tower. Behind them, more vehicles arrived. Black SUVs with tinted windows. Men in dark suits emerged. Royal security. They surrounded the sedan. Marcus was led out gently but firmly. Camilla watched him go. "He didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I asked him to drive me." "I know," Jeffrey said. "He won't be harmed." Inside the guard tower, it was warm but cramped. Radio equipment lined the walls. A table held a telephone and several documents. Jeffrey closed the door. Suddenly it was quiet. The rain became distant. Just the two of them in this small room. "What situation?" Camilla asked. "What are you talking about?" Jeffrey pulled out a folder, opened it. Inside were photographs. Surveillance images. Camilla saw herself in them. Leaving the palace. Getting into the sedan. But there were other photos too. Other people. Men she didn't recognize. Standing outside the airport. Waiting. "We received intelligence 3 hours ago," Jeffrey said. "A credible threat against your person. A group has been monitoring your movements. They knew about your travel plans." Camilla felt her breath catch. "How could they know?" "I told no one except Marcus." "Your phone," Jeffrey said quietly. "It was compromised. They've been listening for 2 weeks." The room tilted. Camilla gripped the edge of the table. Her phone. Her private conversations. Everything she had said. Everything she had planned. All of it heard by strangers. By people who wanted to hurt her. "Who are they?" she whispered. "We're still determining that. But they're organized. Professional. They had people positioned at Heathrow. At the private terminal. If you had reached the airport," he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Camilla sank into a chair. Her carefully planned escape had been a trap. She had been walking straight into danger. Thinking she was running to freedom? Instead, she had nearly run to her death. "Does Charles know?" she asked. Jeffrey hesitated. "The king has been informed. He's returning to the palace now." "Returning from where?" "Balmoral. He left yesterday morning." Camilla looked up. "He wasn't at the palace?" "He didn't know I was leaving." "No, Your Majesty. He didn't." Something cracked inside her chest. Charles had left. Gone to Scotland without a word. While she was planning her escape, he had already escaped. They had both been running. Just in different directions. "What happens now?" Camilla asked. Jeffrey closed the folder. "Now we take you back inside. We secure the palace. And we find out who these people are and what they want. And if I refuse, if I still want to leave," his eyes were kind but firm, "then I'll have to stop you. Not because I want to, but because it's my job to keep you alive, even if you don't want to be kept." Those words hit harder than anything else. Even if you don't want to be kept? Did he think she wanted to die? Did everyone think she was that broken? A knock on the door. Another security officer entered. "Sir, we're ready for transport." Jeffrey nodded. He looked at Camilla. "Please, let us take you home." Home. The word felt hollow. The palace wasn't home. It was a museum, a stage, a place where she played a role every single day. But it wasn't home. Home was somewhere she could breathe, somewhere she could be herself. She hadn't felt at home in years. But she stood up. Because what choice did she have? The rain was still falling. The guards were still waiting. And somewhere out there, people she had never met wanted to hurt her for reasons she didn't understand. She followed Jeffrey out of the tower, back into the rain, into a different vehicle this time. Armored, heavy. The kind of car that told the world someone inside was worth protecting. Or worth targeting. Camilla pressed the button. The window slid down. Rain mist touched her face. Jeffrey stood there, water dripping from his umbrella, his expression unreadable in the harsh lights. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "I need you to step out of the vehicle." "On whose authority?" Her voice was steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "On the authority of the crown and your own safety." Those words hung in the air like a threat or a warning. Camilla couldn't tell which. She looked at Marcus. He was pale, his knuckles white on the wheel. He was just a driver, a good man who had agreed to help her. Now he was caught in something bigger than both of them. "Am I being detained?" Camilla asked. Jeffrey's jaw tightened. "You're being protected. There's a situation. Please, come with me." Everything in her wanted to refuse. To tell Marcus to drive forward, to crash through the gates if necessary. But she saw the guards. She saw their hands resting near their weapons. This wasn't a request. This was a command wrapped in politeness. She opened the door, stepped out into the rain. The cold hit her immediately. Jeffrey held the umbrella over her head. "This way," he said. They walked toward the guard tower. Behind them, more vehicles arrived. Black SUVs with tinted windows. Men in dark suits emerged. Royal security. They surrounded the sedan. Marcus was let out gently, but firmly. Camilla watched him go. "He didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I asked him to drive me." "I know," Jeffrey said. "He won't be harmed." Inside the guard tower, it was warm but cramped. Radio equipment lined the walls. A table held a telephone and several documents. Jeffrey closed the door. Suddenly it was quiet. The rain became distant. Just the two of them in this small room. "What situation?" Camilla asked. "What are you talking about?" Jeffrey pulled out a folder, opened it. Inside were photographs, surveillance images. Camilla saw herself in them. Leaving the palace, getting into the sedan. But there were other photos too. Other people. Men she didn't recognize. Standing outside the airport, waiting. "We received intelligence 3 hours ago," Jeffrey said. "A credible threat against your person. A group has been monitoring your movements. They knew about your travel plans." Camilla felt her breath catch. "How could they know?" "I told no one except Marcus." "Your phone," Jeffrey said quietly. "It was compromised. They've been listening for 2 weeks." The room tilted. Camilla gripped the edge of the table. Her phone, her private conversations, everything she had said, everything she had planned, all of it heard by strangers. By people who wanted to hurt her. "Who are they?" she whispered. "We're still determining that. But they're organized, professional. They had people positioned at Heathrow. At the private terminal. If you had reached the airport," he didn't finish. "Didn't need to." Camilla sank into a chair. Her carefully planned escape had been a trap. She had been walking straight into danger, thinking she was running to freedom. Instead, she had nearly run to her death. "Does Charles know?" she asked. Jeffrey hesitated. "The king has been informed. He's returning to the palace now." "Returning from where?" "Balmoral. He left yesterday morning." Camilla looked up. "He wasn't at the palace? He didn't know I was leaving?" "No, Your Majesty. He didn't." Something cracked inside her chest. Charles had left. Gone to Scotland without a word. While she was planning her escape, he had already escaped. They had both been running, just in different directions. "What happens now?" Camilla asked. Jeffrey closed the folder. "Now we take you back inside. We secure the palace. And we find out who these people are and what they want. And if I refuse, if I still want to leave," his eyes were kind but firm, "then I'll have to stop you. Not because I want to, but because it's my job to keep you alive, even if you don't want to be kept." Those words hit harder than anything else. Even if you don't want to be kept. Did he think she wanted to die? Did everyone think she was that broken? A knock on the door? Another security officer entered. "Sir, we're ready for transport." Jeffrey nodded. He looked at Camilla. "Let us take you home." Home. The word felt hollow. The palace wasn't home. It was a museum, stage, a place where she played a role every single day. But it wasn't home. Home was somewhere she could breathe. Somewhere she could be herself. She hadn't felt at home in years, but she stood up, because what choice did she have? The rain was still falling. The guards were still waiting. And somewhere out there, people she had never met wanted to hurt her for reasons she didn't understand. She followed Jeffrey out of the tower, back into the rain, into a different vehicle this time, armored, heavy, the kind of car that told the world someone inside was worth protecting, or worth targeting. The palace looked different when they arrived. More guards, more lights. Every entrance was manned by armed personnel. Camilla had lived here for years, but tonight it felt like a fortress preparing for siege. The car pulled through the private entrance. Doors opened before she could reach for the handle. Hands guided her out. Professional, efficient, cold. Inside, the marble floors echoed with footsteps. Staff moved quickly through hallways. No one met her eyes. They knew something had happened. Palace staff always knew. Secrets were impossible in a place where everyone watched everyone else. Jeffrey walked beside her. "We've prepared a secure room for you, until we understand the full scope of the threat." "A secure room?" Camilla stopped walking. "You mean you're locking me in?" "I mean we're keeping you safe." "There's a difference, is there?" His silence was answer enough. They continued down a corridor she rarely used, away from her usual chambers. Deeper into the palace, 2 rooms she had never seen, private quarters reserved for emergencies. For exactly this kind of situation, the room was elegant but sparse. A bed, a sitting area, a bathroom. One window with bulletproof glass. Heavy curtains already drawn. A phone on the desk. Nothing personal. Nothing that belonged to her. It felt like a luxury prison cell. "Someone will be stationed outside," Jeffrey said. "If you need anything, just ask. Can I make a phone call?" He shook his head. "All communications are restricted right now. Until we secure your devices and ensure there are no other breaches, so I can't speak to anyone. The king will be here within 2 hours. You can speak to him then." Camilla walked to the window, pulled back the curtain slightly. She could see the gardens below, dark, empty, beautiful in the rain. But she was up here, separated from everything. From the world, from her own life. Jeffrey moved toward the door. "I am sorry, Your Majesty. I know this isn't what you wanted tonight, but you're alive. That's what matters." He left. The door closed with a soft click. Not locked, but it might as well have been. Camilla stood in the center of the room, alone. The silence was deafening. She could hear her own heartbeat, her own breathing. Nothing else. She sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were still shaking. The leather bag she had packed was gone. Taken by security, searched, she had packed so carefully. A few clothes. Some money. Her mother's ring. A photograph of her children from years ago. Small things. Pieces of a life she was trying to save. Now it was all gone. Examined by strangers, evidence of her failed escape. Time moved strangely. Minutes felt like hours. She didn't look at the clock. Didn't want to know how long she'd been sitting here. Waiting. For what? For Charles? For answers. For something that made sense? She thought about the photographs Jeffrey had shown her. The men waiting at the airport. Who were they? What did they want? Money? Attention? Revenge for some perceived slight? The royal family had enemies. That was nothing new. But this felt different. Personal. Calculated. Someone knocked. Camilla stood. "Come in." A woman entered. Middle-aged, kind eyes. She wore a simple uniform. "Your Majesty, I've brought tea, and some food if you're hungry." Camilla wasn't hungry, but she nodded. Thank you. The woman set down a tray. Poured the tea. Her hands were steady, practiced. Is there anything else you need? The truth, Camilla said quietly. Can you bring me that? The woman's expression softened. I wish I could, ma'am. I truly do. She left as quietly as she had come. Camilla drank the tea. It was hot. Earl Grey, her favorite. Someone had remembered, even in lockdown. Even in crisis. The small details of her life were known, tracked, recorded. There was comfort in that. In horror. Another knock. This time firmer. The door opened without waiting for an answer. Charles stood there. He wore traveling clothes. A jacket, casual shirt. He looked exhausted. Lines around his eyes deeper than she remembered. He had aged in the months since they had really looked at each other. Camilla, he said. Just her name. Nothing else. Charles. Her voice was flat, empty. He came inside. Closed the door. They stood facing each other. Two people who had promised forever. Now strangers in the same room? I didn't know, he said. About tonight. About your plans. I didn't know. Would it have mattered? She asked. Would you have stopped me? He looked at her for a long moment. I don't know. It's honesty. Finally, after all the careful words, all the public smiles, here was truth. Raw and painful. Why did you go to Balmoral? She asked. I needed to think. To clear my head. Everything has been so... He trailed off. Couldn't find the word. Or wouldn't say it. Impossible, Camilla finished. Everything has been impossible. Charles moved to the window. Looked out at the same dark garden she had been staring at. Jeffrey told me about the threat. About the surveillance. They could have killed you tonight. Maybe that would have been easier. Turned sharply. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Why not? It's what I feel. Every day I wake up in this place and I don't recognize myself anymore. I don't know who I am. What I'm supposed to be. I'm drowning, Charles. And everyone just watches. His face crumpled. For the first time in months, she saw real emotion. Real pain. I'm watching, he whispered. I'm watching you drown, and I don't know how to save you. I don't know how to save either of us. The silence between them stretched, heavy with words unsaid. Years of words. Camilla sat down slowly. Her legs felt weak. Charles remained by the window. Like if he moved closer, everything would shatter. Do you remember when we used to talk? Camilla asked. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Really talk? About everything. About nothing. Just talk, I remember, Charles said. When did we stop? He turned to face her. I think it was gradual. Death by 1,000 cuts. Every royal obligation. Every public appearance. Every time we had to smile when we wanted to scream. It built up. Until talking felt too hard. Too dangerous. Dangerous. What if we said what we really felt? What if we admitted this was breaking us? Then we'd have to do something about it. And we can't, can we? We're trapped by duty, by history, by everything except our own happiness. Camilla felt tears threaten but held them back. So you went to Balmoral to avoid saying these things? Charles looked down. I went because I was a coward. Because I didn't know how to face you. How to face the fact that I failed you. I was supposed to protect you. To shield you from the worst of this life. Instead, I've let you suffer. We've let each other suffer, Camilla said. This isn't just your failure. It's ours. Together. He moved closer. Sat in the chair across from her. Not touching. But closer than they had been in months. What were you going to do? Wait. In Geneva. After you left? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe just breathe. Maybe figure out who I am without the crown. Without the title. Without all of this pressing down on me every second. Would you have come back? The question hung between them. Camilla didn't answer right away. Because she didn't know. She truly didn't know if she would have found the strength to return. Or if Switzerland would have become permanent. A quiet life. Anonymous. Free. I wanted to believe I would, she finally said. But I can't promise that. Charles nodded slowly. I understand. More than you know. You've thought about leaving too. Every king does. At some point, we all wonder what life would be like without the weight. My father felt it. His father felt it. This golden cage we inherit, it's beautiful. And it's suffocating. A knock interrupted them. Geoffrey entered without waiting. His face was grim. Your Majesty, we have a situation. Charles stood. What kind of situation? We've identified one of the suspects from the airport. His name is Thomas Brennan. Former intelligence officer. Dishonorably discharged 5 years ago. He's been working as a private contractor. Surveillance. Security. Sometimes less legal activities. Why is he targeting Camilla? Charles demanded. Geoffrey pulled out more documents. It's not just Her Majesty. It's the crown itself. Brennan has connections to a radical group, anti-monarchy activists. They've been planning something for months. We believe tonight was their opportunity. Remove the Queen Consort. Create chaos. Destabilize the institution. Camilla felt cold. So I was bait. My escape was their chance? We think they intended to make it look like an accident. Or a kidnapping. Either way, the goal was to wound the monarchy. To create a crisis. Charles's hand found Camilla's shoulder. The first time he had touched her with intention in weeks. How many of them are there? We've identified 6 confirmed members. 2 are already in custody. The others scattered when they realized we were onto them. But Brennan is still at large. He's still out there, Camilla asked. Her voice shook. Yes, which is why security protocols remain in effect. No one leaves the palace without armed escort. No public appearances until we neutralize the threat. Charles looked at Geoffrey. How long? Could be days. Could be weeks. We're coordinating with MI5, with local authorities. But Brennan is skilled. He knows how to stay hidden. After Geoffrey left, the room felt smaller, the walls closer. Camilla stood and walked to the window again. Her reflection stared back at her in the dark glass. She looked tired, older than her years. This was what the crown did. It aged you, wore you down, turned you into a ghost of yourself. Sorry, Charles said behind her. For what? For not seeing how bad it had gotten? For not fighting harder? For you? For us? She turned. Charles, we've been fighting our whole lives. Against the press? Against expectations? Against people who will never accept us. Maybe we're just tired of fighting, so what do? It was the question neither of them could answer. What do you do when the life you're living is killing you, but you can't leave? When duty demands everything and gives nothing back? When love isn't enough to overcome the weight of history? We survive, Camilla said, like we always have. We put on the smile. We attend the events. We play the role. And we hope that somewhere beneath all of this, we're still real people. Still us. Charles moved to her side. Looked out at the gardens with her. I don't want to lose you. Not to them. Not to this life. Not to anything. Then help me find a reason to stay, she whispered. Give me something real. Something that's ours. Not the crown's, not the country's, ours. He took her hand. His fingers were warm, familiar. She had forgotten how his touch felt, how it made her feel safe. Even now. Even here, I'll try, he said. I promise, I'll try. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't a fix. But it was a start. A fragile thread connecting them again. Camilla held on to it. Because what else was there? She couldn't leave. The guards had proven that. The threat had proven that. She was bound to this life. To this palace. To this man beside her. But maybe that didn't mean drowning. Maybe it meant learning to swim. Together. The next morning arrived gray and cold. Camilla woke in the secure room, momentarily confused. Then memory flooded back. The rain, the guards, the failed escape. She was still here, still trapped, but something felt different. Lighter somehow. Charles had stayed with her until late. They had talked. Really talked. About things they had avoided for months. About fears and failures. About the impossible position they were in. It hadn't solved anything, but it had opened a door that had been sealed shut. A soft knock. The same woman from last night entered with breakfast. "Good morning, Your Majesty. I hope you slept well." Camilla hadn't, but she smiled anyway. "Well enough. Thank you. Admiral Harmon will be up to see you within the hour. He has news." News could be good or bad. Camilla ate mechanically. Toast, eggs, tea. The routine of it was comforting. Small, normal things in an abnormal situation. She showered, changed into fresh clothes that had been brought while she slept. Someone had retrieved items from her chambers. Her own things. That helped. Jeffrey arrived exactly on time. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "Your Majesty." "Good morning. Is it good?" she asked. "That depends on your news." He managed a tired smile. "We have Brennan in custody. Apprehended 2 hours ago trying to board a ferry to France. He's currently being questioned." Relief washed over her. "So it's over?" "The immediate threat is neutralized. But we're still investigating the full scope of the group's plans. There may be others we haven't identified yet." "When can I leave this room?" "Today, we're moving you back to your regular chambers. Enhanced security measures will remain in place, but you'll have more freedom of movement within the palace." Freedom within the palace. Camilla almost laughed. Such a limited kind of freedom. But it was something. Better than this room. Better than total lockdown. "Can I see Marcus, my driver? I need to know he's all right." Jeffrey's expression softened. "He's been cleared. No charges. He was questioned and released last night. He feels terrible about what happened. It wasn't his fault. I want to speak with him. To apologize, I'll arrange it." After Jeffrey left, Camilla gathered her few belongings. The leather bag had been returned. Everything inside carefully repacked. She checked for her mother's ring. Still there? Safe? She slipped it onto her finger. A small rebellion. Wearing something that meant more than any crown jewel. The walk back to her chambers felt strange. Like returning from a long journey, even though she had never left the palace. Staff nodded as she passed. Respectful, but their eyes held questions. Everyone would know by now. The queen consort had tried to leave, had been stopped. The gossip would be endless. Her chambers felt familiar and foreign at once. Everything exactly as she had left it, but she saw it differently now. Not as a prison. Not exactly. But as a place she had to make peace with. Because this was her life, for better or worse, this was where she belonged. Charles appeared in the doorway. "They told me you were back." "I'm back," she said. "Though I never really left, did I?" He came inside. Closed the door. "We need to talk about what happens next. About how we move forward, I know." He pulled out an envelope. Handed it to her. "Read this. When you're alone, it's things I couldn't say out loud. Not yet. But I needed you to know." Camilla took the envelope. Their fingers touched briefly. That connection still there. Fragile, but real. "Charles, about last night, we don't have to dissect it," he said. "We just have to remember it. Remember that, beneath everything, we're still the people we were. Before the crown. Before the title. We're still us." He left before she could respond. Camilla opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Charles's careful script covering 2 pages. She sat by the window and read. The words were raw. Honest. He wrote about his own failures. His regrets. How he had let the weight of kingship push them apart. How he had forgotten to be a husband while trying to be a monarch. How he saw her pain and felt powerless to stop it. But he also wrote about hope. About wanting to rebuild what they had lost. About making changes. Small ones. Finding moments that were just theirs. Away from cameras and crowds. Real moments. Real-life tears came finally, not from sadness. From release, from feeling seen, understood. After months of isolation, here was proof that she wasn't alone. That Charles was suffering too. That they could help each other survive this impossible life. A knock. Geoffrey again. Your Majesty, I'm sorry to disturb, but Marcus is here. If you're ready to see him, yes, send him in. Marcus entered looking devastated, gray-faced, older than yesterday. Your Majesty, I am so deeply sorry. I should never have agreed to drive you. I put you in danger. Marcus, stop. You did exactly what I asked. You were kind when I needed kindness. You were brave when I needed someone to be brave with me. If anyone should apologize, it's me. I put you at risk. But the threat was real. But it wasn't your fault. Please, I need you to forgive yourself. Because I certainly don't blame you. Relief flooded his features. Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you know. Will you still be my driver? After all this, he straightened. If you'll have me, yes, absolutely. And we're agreed. And Marcus, thank you for trying to help me escape, even if it didn't work. Thank you for seeing that I needed help. After he left, Camilla stood at her window overlooking the gardens. The rain had stopped. Weak sunlight broke through clouds. The world outside continued. People living their lives. Free to come and go. Free to make mistakes and start over. She would never have that freedom. Not completely. But maybe she could find a different kind of freedom. Freedom within boundaries. Peace within the palace walls. Connection with Charles despite the crown. Between them, it wasn't what she had wanted when she got into that car at 3 a.m. It wasn't the escape she had dreamed of, but it was something. A chance. A beginning. 3 weeks passed. Life returned to its royal rhythm. Public appearances resumed. State dinners. Charity events. The machine of monarchy ground on. But something had shifted. Something fundamental. Camilla and Charles had started taking walks. Early mornings before the palace fully woke, just the two of them and a single security guard at a distance. They walked through the private gardens. Talked about small things. The weather. The flowers. Nothing profound. But those small things built bridges. Slowly, carefully. The media never learned the full truth of that night. The official story was simple. A credible threat had been identified and neutralized. Enhanced security protocols had been implemented. The Queen Consort had never been in real danger. Just precautionary measures. Only a handful of people knew about the black sedan. The 3 a.m. departure. The letter in Camilla's bag that said, "I'm sorry. I tried. I can't anymore." That letter had been destroyed. Sealed evidence of a moment of desperation that would never see public light. Thomas Brennan and his associates were in custody. Trials would come. Prison sentences. The anti-monarchy group disbanded, its plans shattered. But the hatred that fueled them remained. It always would. Some people would never accept the crown. Never accept those who wore it. Camilla learned to live with that. To stop reading the comments. Stop searching for her name online. Stop trying to win over people determined to hate her. It was a kind of freedom. Liberation through letting go. One evening, Charles found her in the library. She was reading. Something light. Escapist fiction. He sat across from her. "Do you ever think about that night?" He asked. "Every day," she admitted. "Do you?" "Yes. I think about how close I came to losing you. Not to them. To yourself. To despair." She closed the book. "I was in a dark place. I won't pretend I wasn't. But I'm climbing out. We're climbing out together." "I spoke with Geoffrey today," Charles said, "about making changes, real changes, to how we operate, how we live." "What kind of changes?" "Fewer public engagements, more control over our schedule, time that's actually ours, not given to us." But Taken claimed, "We're the king and queen. We should be able to protect our own sanity. Camilla felt hope flutter. Dangerous, fragile, but there. Can we do that? Won't people say we're shirking duty? People will say everything regardless of what we do. I'm tired of living for their approval. I want to live for us. For whatever time we have left. I want it to mean something beyond obligation. She stood, moved to him, took his hands. Then let's do it. Let's take our lives back. As much as we can, pulled her close. They hadn't held each other like this in months, but it felt right, natural, like coming home after being lost. I won't let us drift apart again, Charles whispered against her hair. I promise you that. I promise to stop suffering in silence. To tell you when I'm drowning, before I'm completely underwater, I stayed like that for a long time. Two people who had almost lost everything, who had stared into the abyss of their own unhappiness, who had chosen, finally, to fight for each other instead of against the world. The palace would always be a palace, grand, historic, suffocating in its way. But they would find air, small pockets of breath, moments of genuine life hidden between the ceremonies and speeches. That night at the guard's gate had changed everything. Not in the way Camilla had wanted. She hadn't escaped, hadn't found freedom beyond the palace walls, but she had found something else. Connection, purpose, a reason to stay that was stronger than fear, stronger than duty, love, complicated, imperfect, tested by impossible circumstances, but real, worth fighting for. Marcus still drove her. They never spoke of that rainy night, but sometimes their eyes met in the mirror, and understanding passed between them. A shared secret, a moment when they had both been brave enough to try something impossible. Geoffrey remained head of security, more vigilant than ever. He had learned something too, that protecting the royal family wasn't just about physical threats. It was about watching for the quiet dangers, the internal ones, the kind that made someone want to disappear in the night. Months later, Camilla stood on a palace balcony, a public event. Thousands of people below, cameras everywhere, the noise, the pressure, all of it still there. But she stood differently now, not alone. Charles beside her, his hand finding hers. A simple gesture, private in the middle of very public life. She smiled, not the practiced royal smile, but a real one. Because she had learned something essential. You don't have to escape to survive. Sometimes you just have to stay and find someone willing to stay with you. Through the darkness, through the weight, through everything, the guards at the gate that night had blocked her path. She had thought they were stopping her freedom, but maybe they had saved her life in more ways than one. Maybe they had given her the chance to find a different kind of escape, not away from this life, but deeper into it, into the parts that mattered, into connection, into love. The crowd cheered. The cameras flashed. The machine of monarchy continued its endless march. But Camilla was no longer drowning. She was swimming, finally, deliberately, with someone who understood the depth of the water, who knew how hard it was to stay afloat, who was willing to swim beside her. That was enough. It had to be, because some prisons can't be escaped. They can only be survived. And survival, she had learned, wasn't about being alone. It was about finding the people who made the cage bearable, who turned obligation into choice, who transformed duty into something resembling grace. The rain had stopped that night. Eventually it always does. And when morning came, Camilla was still here, still standing, still alive. Not because she had to be, but because she chose to be, because this life, impossible as it was, had become worth living again. And that was its own kind of escape, the only kind that mattered. Freedom not from the palace, but within it, within herself, within the life she had chosen and lost and chosen again, this time with her eyes open, this time knowing the cost, this time deciding it was worth paying. The story didn't end that night at the gate. It began again, the way all true stories do, with a choice. To stay, to fight, to love, to survive. And she did. They did together. Asterisk.